This is Citizen Smith, and now I am talking to my good friend, Paul Chambliss, who I used to be working with as a teacher in Guiyang, China, which is in the Guizhou southwestern province of China. It's a beautiful area, but it's very conservative. Paul's in Guiyang, so we have a little bit of a delay. We're on WeChat, which, by the way, is still working. President Trump said he was going to stop the use of this app, WeChat, which is a social app in China, but we're still using it, Paul.
Yeah, there we are. No, it's still good, golden. I guess they just can't do business with American counterparts. It boils down to that. So I don't know how it keeps operating from here on out, but we're still talking. That's great, right?
I don't know, Paul. It's like it just disappeared. The movement to stop it. It kind of faded away in the Trump administration.
My impression was the bigger threat was, or according to Trump, was Douyin, and that's really kind of fizzled. I think there's some ultimatum coming up, and they won't be able to do business with anybody in America. But beyond that, I don't know. I think we'll see what Biden does, but it's all quite hazy right now, apparently.
What did you say? Douyin?
Douyin. That's the video. That's the little where they share like a 20-second.
It's referred to as TikTok in English. Were you using the Chinese?
Oh, TikTok. Oh, yeah. Sorry, use the Chinese. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So for your viewers, Douyin is the Chinese equivalent, basically.
Paul's
separate entities.
Paul's used to speaking Chinese because he is virtually fluent in the language, though he says he isn't. But you know, he's dating a Chinese girl. He's dating a Chinese girl who doesn't speak very good English, and so he's always speaking Chinese as they live together. He's. I'm sorry, Paul. Did I get too personal? Anyway, he's 8 years in China now. He's pretty much more of a communist Chinese than he is an American right now. But he will be returning. He's from Texas.
It was this year in August, but yeah, here I'm still here. I know I say often next year, but this year is a pretty good reason. I've got a good excuse not to be back in America at the meantime. So, those vaccines are good, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, I see that we beat the Chinese to making one, though. The Chinese will be coming out with one. Have you heard anything? You are in the country and you are in the know.
Well, no, they have had a vaccine. They've given high-risk people, they've vaccinated them with their vaccine. So people who are on the front lines, who are treating people who might very well have been exposed to COVID. But what's the efficacy of their vaccine? I have no idea. I mean, we do more routine testing, but here it's kind of hard to say whether it's good or not. But 90% and 95% sounds pretty decent to me. But for the Chinese one, I have no idea.
Would you take it if you had the opportunity?
No, I just wait and see how I would wait for more testing. I'd wait to see what the results are. I'd wait to see the efficacy of these vaccines.
I'm referring to a Chinese vaccine.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, for any vaccine for that matter. But yeah, I know you're referring to the Chinese one. But no, I'd wait. I would want more information. I'd want to see what the results are. I get a bigger, broader idea of how effective it is.
Let's talk about
side effects. I know in Brazil they had stopped some study or they were doing a massive vaccination program there.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Brazil. I want to talk about China because you're my China expert.
Well, it was Chinese.
Yeah. Oh, the vaccine in Brazil, was a Chinese vaccine, but then the leader pulled it. He discontinued it.
Bolsonaro. Yeah. Well, I don't know if he did, but he was saying it was a victory for humanity or something along these lines that they pulled this Chinese vaccine. So I don't think it was necessarily him.
So anyway, you're in Guiyang, China, and we're talking now about the holidays. Last year I was in Guiyang when I was teaching, and they discontinued Christmas for the first time. It was a movement across China last year to get rid of Christmas, a Western holiday that they no longer wanted to value or promote. So the stores are all big about Christmas decorations and Christmas trees, and the hotels put beautiful Christmas decorations and a large Christmas tree in front of the Kempinski Hotel. But then the order came from the very conservative communist mayor of Guiyang, which I guess was an order nationally, but some people, I guess, took it more seriously than others. I think maybe it was a sweeping move across the nation, but in Guiyang, the trees were taken down. This beautiful, massive tree in front of the very luxurious Kempinski Hotel was taken down. We were not allowed to have a Christmas party or have Santa Claus present gifts to the students in our school, although I did pretend to be Santa Claus's cousin. No, I was Santa Claus's cousin, and we went out. So the holidays are approaching again, and have you got word? Is it going to be the same sweeping conservative movement to get rid of Merry Christmas in China?
I would imagine it's been a year-by-year kind of increase in their vigilance about Western holidays and just trying to keep them at bay. But I think what you were referring to last year, what happened was they kept it out of the main downtown district. So you could go to a five-star hotel outside of you know where you worked before, downtown, and you would still see these celebrations.
I didn't see any.
There probably will be no. You won't. Maybe you didn't go outside of town enough.
And the malls, the stores and the stores and the malls had to get rid of their Christmas decorations.
And I heard, I don't know if that is just a Guiyang Guizhou initiative type of thing. I don't know if Shanghai was still doing the same thing. But to my understanding, it wasn't that wide. I thought the more concerning thing was what was happening in Huaxi at that church, that they just kind of shut down that church. But you have all sorts of churches kind of pop up and just...
Hey, could you back up? Could you back up on that one? What church are you referring to? Was that last year?
All I know, no, that was recently. It was about a month ago.
Oh, right. Yeah, you sent me the article. You sent me the article. It was by a Christian newspaper, and at the NZ Fellowship in Guiyang, they arrested the pastor. It has 10 members, and they didn't join what they refer to as the Three Self Patriotic Movement, which is the first I've heard of that. They refused to do it, but they were forced to do it in the police station where they were wearing prison uniforms, even though they weren't prisoners. Then they were released after several hours. But this is also the crackdown now in China, I guess, or is it just Guiyang's communist mayor who's getting carried away with getting rid of Christianity and Christmas in China?
Well, I don't know.
Well, the mayor of Guiyang it's a woman, right? Is it?
It was this one isolated case, but I think it is a woman, but I'm not entirely sure.
Guiyang's a very conservative... Look, I lived there. It's a conservative city. The mayor is staunchly against Western civilization.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting that you say that. Like, I did get a message from my boss today, and we had a meeting, although I wasn't part of it, but it was for the city. But it was for all the training schools. They had to get together at number 6 high school or middle school, and they had to show various officials what materials they were teaching or what we've been teaching recently. And they're basically auditing every textbook and everything that we teach. And I guess they're trying to make sure there's not too much of a pro-Western slant. Like, it wasn't put verbatim quite like that, but I think that was largely my impression, was they're just vetting these textbooks for maybe ideas that are a little harmful to the party.
This was also a movement that started. This was also a movement that started last year. The elimination of Western textbooks in schools in China.
Yeah, that's in public schools. So now they're moving on. Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. So now I think they're just moving on to the training schools and private learning centers and just trying to audit all that material.
So are your books being? There's a little delay, so sorry, folks. Are your books being removed that are Western, and are you getting replaced by all Chinese books to teach English now in your private language school?
Yeah, it hasn't moved that fast. That might very well be the case at one. But we have one book called Spotlight, and it's basically geared towards ESL students in America, maybe coming from Latin America or Mexico. And it is very patriotic. It does happen to talk about American heroes, and you have you have the national anthem in there, so I could see where that might be a little problematic.
What do you mean problematic? I was teaching in China in 1991 and 92 and 93, and back then we had the same material. There was no problem. It hasn't been a problem. The kids don't absorb it like they're going to become nationalists of the United States of America because they saw the national anthem or read a folk story about Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, just quite like that. um, but I mean, that's not just the way you see it doesn't mean the way the government here.
Well, the way I see it is China's becoming more and more anti-American, and that goes for the books it reads and the way the teachers are treated and the way they treat Western society. It's becoming a movement to get away from anything American.
Well, that's an interesting segue, Kenny. I mean, last week I was in Shanghai Disneyland, and I could say that it was pretty American in my.
Well, it's Disney World, for God's sakes. I mean, what are they going to do? Get rid of Mickey Mouse?
I mean, you think these people. I saw one guy, he was arguing with the Marvel characters. I mean, he was really getting into it.
What was he arguing about?
No, he was just having fun. He was just role playing with Iron Man and Black Panther. So my point is, I mean, a lot of people, they relish American culture. They really get into it, and you see it on full display there at Shanghai Disneyland.
Well, you tell me. You know more about. You've been in China for 8 years. Do you see the movement away from American ideologies or any reference of it, which is what I think? And do you feel that because of the nationalist movement in China, it's becoming more anti-American? We're talking general public here. General public. The common man on the street and woman.
Yeah. No, in my experience with people, no. I mean, they would still say, oh, America, oh, quite lihai, like what a tough country. But
they always say tough country, but they don't ever say I love America or America's great. No. I used to get that in '93, but I don't get that now.
You and I were at a bar last year, and you remember this guy, he was talking to me, and he had a family in America. His sister lived in America, and his nieces and nephews were American. And he was praising America. He couldn't have been more effusive. And I remember how happy you were when I was translating for you. But he said he was so happy that America had dropped the bomb and did a good part in liberating China from the Japanese. Like, you will come across people like this who are, do give a little respect.
All right, I'm going to ask you.
The most criticism I've heard recently is in regards to the pandemic. A lot of people that I just meet, they will almost without reservation, they'll talk about how unobedient or disobedient Americans are, that they're not willing to wear masks. And I completely agree with that.
But it's not true. 80% of Americans are wearing masks. A survey was done.
All it takes is that 20%. All it takes is that 20% to tip the scale in the favor of this ravaging disease. And they get that. The Chinese well understand that.
Well, when are you coming back to it? When are you going to come back to America? And what will you take from China after your 8 years?
What will I take from China? Maybe I'll know some of the language. I think I would just feel a little more comfortable having lived here for 8 years, knowing that China is going to supplant our status as the #1 economy in the world. So for me, having been here and experiencing the people, but not just the people, but everything, the culture, the food, I can be a little more comfortable knowing that that's going to be the case, and that they see where they want to be, and they feel that's their rightful position. And who's to say that they're not right or wrong? I mean, America, we always do think that we are the legitimate superpower, but China just sees it a little differently. And I'm not saying that I'm pro-communist. I'm not pro-communist remotely, but I think that having been here, I won't be quite as keen to denigrate China once I get back to America. I think maybe it could have done you some good to spend a little more time here again.
I understand China I understand China very well, Paul, and I come from a position similar to yours. I'm just more concerned about other issues like humanitarian. Things like that, they're the military, South China Sea. These are more political things that if you look at objectively, are a concern to Americans in the world. From the societal standpoint and from the history of China, yes, I understand that they want to be number one economic. I mean, a country like China doesn't want to be number two. They want to lead. They want the respect and they want their history recognized, the suffering they've gone through, and also the movement ahead in their rising in the world. But how they do that is my concern.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. When I was in Xinjiang, and this was about 7 years ago, I met quite a few Uyghurs who'd come up to me and just start talking, and it'd be very polite, congenial, like conversation at first, but then it would almost inevitably, go towards Beijing and their hatred for Beijing, and it got quite uncomfortable. Actually, it made me a bit uneasy. But that was interesting to see that 7 years ago and experience that firsthand. And then now see it really go into overdrive and how they've really tried to stamp out any kind of anything remotely appearing to be independent or striving for that kind of independence. Like they've really locked down, as you well know, like following any articles. But it was good to see that firsthand, to get to meet people and just see what their perspectives are. And yeah, it's not no one would say that's rosy or a good thing, but sometimes that is just the way it is.
Well, we'll let it stand. We'll let it stand. We'll let it stand at that, and keep you safe there, and not get you to speak too much and too openly, because we know that is not allowed in China by an American, especially teaching there. And we thank you for your honesty, Paul. We'll talk again. Paul is my Chinese expert, Paul Chambliss. His father's also a well-known journalist. He spent his whole life as a journalist in St. Petersburg newspaper. What was the paper he worked at?
The Dallas Morning News and St. Petersburg Times.
Yeah. And so Paul's got that analytical mind, that journalistic take on life.
Yeah, just trying to be somewhat objective here, I guess, but
somewhat. But but honestly, you have been influenced a little bit by, when Americans live in China for a lengthy period of time, I noticed they do censor themselves on how they talk and think, and you do lack the ability, I think, to critically see China as much as you would say if you weren't there for so many years.
Yeah.
I know that's a strong statement, but that's my take.
But it is different to be here and to get to know people and understand that the people themselves really don't harbor much ill will. And in fact, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily support the Communist Party. Like, there's no telling, like, how many entities you have within the Communist Party who are really don't appreciate what this current chairman is doing. So they've lost opportunities. So, I mean, when you're here and you're experiencing that, you understand that, I mean, it just takes a few people. I mean, look, our democracy is almost derailed recently.
Almost doesn't count, Paul. We had a very strong turnout for the election, historical in numbers. The counts were accurately done. Democracy worked, and a leader was newly elected, which we can't say for some countries like China.
Yeah, no, completely. And a lot of people do resent that, in people in positions of power here in the party. So, I mean,
yeah, that was kind of a sweeping statement. I don't know where you get that.
Well, didn't we read some article recently, a couple months ago, about some woman who'd been in a high position of power, and she basically just started railing on Xi Jinping? I mean, that's got to be, that has to be quite common.
I don't know. I don't know about common. I mean, so. Well, nonetheless, I get where you're coming from. It's just it's hard to monitor that kind of thing in China. You just don't know, really. I don't know who's thinking what and where and what positions. Once in a while, you get a rare occasion when somebody comes and speaks out, like that woman you referred to, who was high up in the Communist Party at one time.
Yeah, you remember reading about her.
Yeah, I do, but that was a rare occasion. I mean, you don't see these articles and these people often, So I don't.
Too, because she wasn't in China, obviously. I mean, I think she was in North America or Europe. Like, so I mean, she's not going to rail on China while being in China.
Yeah, good point. All right, Paul, we'll let you go there. I know you got to go. Your girlfriend's coming home, and you're not allowed to talk on the phone when she's home. Um,
Be surprised if she walked in and I'm talking and I'm telling her to be quiet. This is kind of worried.
well, and she, yeah, she runs a very
Quite a bit, Ken. She dances you.
she runs a very strict household, and since you're not paying rent, you must adhere to her rules.
Oh, I bought a refrigerator.
Oh, nicely done. Well, that'll cover some of the cost of the monthly rent.
I pay my due, yeah. You have a good one. It was nice being on your show, Ken.
All right, talk to you later. 再见.
All right, take care. Thank you. 再见.
I always enjoyed talking to my good friend Paul and Gui Young. We taught together at a private language school, and we'd always get into these conversations. He's always more objective and kind of tries to see both sides of the coin when it comes to China-U.S. relations. I'm more critical, but like I said, he's been there for 8 years, so sometimes his take is a little different. Usually it's different, but you can see that he does know what he's talking about. And he's fluent in the language, which to me, he didn't study at a school for it. He just picked it up on his own and taught himself with private tutors that he brought in. And it's quite something to learn the Chinese language, Mandarin. But I tried. I'm not very good at language, but I always respected that in him. So he worries about coming back to America and getting a job after 8 years of being a teacher in China. I said, you're fluent in Chinese. You know the country perfectly. You could get a job with some business or the government or who knows with your background. There aren't too many Americans who are fluent in Mandarin. So, and he can read the language too pretty good. He read a book in Chinese. I'm like, wow, you really learned a lot. And sometimes he underestimates what he knows. Anyway, with that said, I will take a break here. We'll come back for our second segment on Citizen Smith.
TalkCast PDX is a digital platform for local talk shows, live video streaming shows, and podcasts originating from Portland, Oregon. We are committed to a diversity of opinions and quality talk that offers something for everyone. At our brand new state-of-the-art studio, we offer a wide range of services to meet every type of broadcasting need. Yes, we will help you record and edit your podcast or program. We also help you distribute on multiple platforms, and we can also help you transcribe your show for a blog. We offer video services and promotional services as well as ad revenue packages. Email us today for a special introductory offer. Everything you need to start your own show as soon as possible. We're here to help. Go to TalkCastPDX.com, that's TalkCastPDX.com, and send us a message today.
It's time for Citizen Smith.
Welcome back to Citizen Smith. And yes, I am Citizen Smith. I like to cut to the truth, as I say in my slogan, no matter how painful it may be. But the truth is hard to come by sometimes, and it doesn't help when you make errors on your own. Like I did in the last show, I must correct myself. When I was interviewing Chris Thornton about the shutdown in Oregon and Portland, I mentioned at the start as of December 2nd. I meant as of November 18th. December 2nd would be the end of the 2-week freeze that Governor Kate Brown had implemented. But my brain wasn't working right. For some reason, my brain said December 2nd, Ken, because that date was in my brain, but the date was November 18th. I don't know why that happened. I'm a very sharp individual still. And I didn't pick up on it when I was screening the recording, because this is a recorded show right now, although it will be live, hopefully in the new year, when I'm in studio and not working remotely from my home, which, by the way, is causing me to lose focus. It's hard to remain focused when you're sitting in a living room, you're not engaging people in a workplace, you're not sharp and creative like you usually are in a vibrant, energetic environment at the workplace. I hate remote working. I can't wait to see my colleagues and my friends. I can't wait to interview somebody face to face, not on the phone. I don't care what you say, remote working sucks. It's great for a novelist. If you're a writer and you're writing a book, fantastic. Sit in the corner of your living room at your computer and write a great book. But when you're trying to be engaging and talking and thinking sharply and on your toes, especially as a talk show host, there's nothing like a radio studio or a studio. And we have a state-of-the-art studio at TalkCastPDX.com, the platform of which this show originates and many others that we are developing for Portland, Oregon, and the state of Oregon, and the nation and the world. And I want to return to the studio that we just built and spent tons of money on to make beautiful equipment work, to make a stellar talk show and podcasts. We'll be taking phone calls. And I won't make stupid errors like I just did before in the last show. I apologize to Kate Brown, the governor, for misleading and saying December 2nd. I know it was a slip of the tongue. It was something I didn't intentionally do, but I questioned myself that I really can't. I got to get back on game, and I can't do that in a living room. With that said, I would like to talk about what we did discuss in that interview with Chris Thornton of MCO, which owns 9 restaurants. We're talking about how restaurants in Portland now, in Multnomah County is part of Portland is part of Multnomah County, and they have to freeze now for 4 weeks. 4 weeks beyond the December 2nd. It would extend 2 more weeks because of the coronavirus surge, which is a great burden to place on restaurants in the city of Portland. I mean, that decision alone could cause bankruptcies. It will shut down restaurants permanently. They will go out of business. I mean, you just took the holiday away from them. Thanksgiving and Christmas, possibly. And it could go longer. And the longer it goes, the more restaurants are going to go belly up. The heart and soul of the city. It's tragic. And if they do shut down, as long as they say they will, and will continue the shutdown, the state of Oregon, and every state that does this, to restaurants especially, because they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the unemployment. Well, the unemployment's obviously covered by the federal government right now with the emergency measures, which also is going to be going away. I'll be talking about that. But you should be giving these companies, these restaurants, money. They pay their taxes. You, as a government, have taken an authoritarian position. Governor Kate Brown has become a dictator, like many governors in the country, telling businesses, forcing businesses to shut down. Unprecedented in American history. And if you're going to do something that extreme to combat a virus like the coronavirus, then you are obligated to provide money to these businesses to survive through the forced shutdown of the government. So the sooner you pony up and start shelling out some money to these businesses, the better off we will all be. And it's an obligation, as I said. They should not be beating around the bush, coming out with another round of PPPs. The Paycheck Protection Program, which was forgivable loans for these restaurants and other businesses. Retail, too. Let's not forget them. They're taking a hard hit. The 2 R's, R&R, restaurant and retail. A government cannot say, you will not operate anymore. By the force of the government, you will shut down and lose money and go bankrupt. If they're going to take that position, they have to provide emergency funds. End of story. It's irresponsible otherwise to do so. I'm sure if you're listening, you agree. Any restaurant workers agree. Any restaurant owners know this is necessary. Oregon, come on, pay up. All these businesses pay tons of taxes. They fund your government and have done so for history of the city. And all the taxes they've paid in should be coming back now to help them in a time of emergency. Unfortunately, our federal government is also turning its back on Americans. And it is occurring today with the announcement by Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who says, and he's backing his decision not to extend critical emergency lending facilities beyond this year. He said, quote, "Congress trusted us with this money and we're going to follow the law," Mr. Mnuchin said on CNBC. So they will not be extending several key emergency lending programs beyond the end of the year. And that will hurt you and me. This will be a hit to the economy, a hit to those who are unemployed, who were getting federal assistance through the programs. Millions of Americans now facing hardship. More than 12 million unemployed workers will see their jobless benefits disappear by the end of the year as two federal programs created in March under the CARES Act are set to expire unless Congress extends them. This in the New York Times today on the front page. It is a development that also threatens the larger economy. A new study by the Progressive Century Foundation found that 7.3 million workers would lose their benefits with the end of pandemic unemployment assistance, which provides coverage for gig workers, the self-employed, and independent contractors. An additional 4.6 million would be cut off from the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation that is now being provided, which kicks in when state employment benefits run out. All of this is going away at the end of the year. They are, as was stated in the article, and this quote, the last lifelines available to millions of Americans in desperate need, said Andrew Stetner, a senior fellow with the Century Foundation and co-author of the study with Elizabeth Pancotti. It will be a crippling end to one of our darkest years. Whoa, Jesus, that is dire. Not a good way to end the year. Come on, Congress, get your asses back in the seat and bring back the federal emergency funds that we need as Americans. These programs were backed by $454 billion that Congress appropriated in March as part of a broader pandemic response package. Because of the way the Fed's emergency lending powers work, Jerome H. Powell, the Fed chair, needs the Treasury Secretary's sign-off to make major changes to the program's terms. Extending the end date counts as one of those changes that need approval, which now we do not have. We paid our taxes all our lives. Some of us in our 50s, in our 40s, and our 60s have paid a lot of taxes over the years of our working careers, and now we need the taxes to kick in that we've put in all these decades of work to help us get through the darkest time in American history with this coronavirus. So when Congress reconvenes, please reinstitute these programs by federal emergency orders and bring back the money we need as individuals, as companies, as businesses to get through the next few months. By the time we get to April, we won't need it anymore. We'll be back on our feet. But give it to us to start 2021 for a few months. Thank you. And finally, Oregon has taken the step to shut down the economy, put in stringent measures like other states across the country, telling people don't travel for the holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And that's right. It's the right thing to do. But we might want to copy what's going on in Finland and Norway, which has done a great job of using brief lockdowns, tightening border controls to lower the rate of the coronavirus. This in the Wall Street Journal on Thursday's paper, November 19th. one of the things they mentioned was the key recipe, which, hey, look at it. If it's working in Finland and Norway, it will work in a state like Oregon. And really what the governor is doing, Kate Brown, is mimicking what they are doing in Finland and Norway. Let's stay on the path. I think we're on the right way here. Their recipe, a brief targeted lockdown in March, followed by tight border controls with mandatory testing and quarantine for all travelers. That's how you do it. Finland and Norway follow a similar playbook of strict border controls, mandatory quarantines, and detailed contact tracing focused on preventing super spreading events when infections do occur. This by the reporter Bojan Pendzevsky of the Wall Street Journal. Travelers to Norway must produce a negative test to enter the country and must stay confined for 10 days in a certified hotel after arriving. Violators are subject to high fines or deportation. Stopping inbound international travel early and urging Finns not to travel abroad was the foundation of Finland's success, said Mika Salminen, director of the Department of Health Security and one of the architects of the pandemic strategy there. As a consequence, air travel dropped 95%, and over 94% of Finns vacationed within their country from May to August, with the rest traveling mainly to Norway. So that's what we need to do, just to finally nail this virus down from spreading. States need to implement border controls just like Norway and Finland, contact tracing just like Norway and Finland, 10 days confinement just like Norway and Finland, certified hotels just like they're doing that are clean to specifications of the state. Emergency implementation of this will get us through the next 3 to 4 months and snuff out this virus with the vaccines, and we will all be back out eating in restaurants, strolling through parks without masks in April. That's my vision. If the states can coordinate, like Washington and Oregon and California, maybe those three have a coordinated effort for cross-border interaction and how they treat everybody. Everybody coming across the border needs to be tracked. I know it's crazy. It sounds authoritarian, but, well, I hate to say it, but look what China did, and that's how they did it. And now Norway and Finland. And now we should finally take these emergency measures to get through the final round of this coronavirus heading into 2021. And that does it for today's show. I'm Citizen Smith. Enjoy your weekend. I will talk to you on Monday. Be safe, be smart, wear your mask.